Hello everyone, this is Donnie aka Elevated with another video coming at you on behalf of Dota Alchemy, and we just finished the DreamLeague Minor, so shout out to VG Gaming for winning that, and shout out to Secret Lab for supporting this channel. Let's get into the patch notes. These are very basic kind of balancing patches, and if you haven't already, be sure to check out our hero guides. These will be updated in the next, I don't know, hour or two as I get through them. Up to 7.21D, and we have hero guides for all the heroes, so we see people asking for this a lot. So let's get into it. Gameplay update 7.21D. Dire hard camp pull is now easier to do. This was always a little bit frustrating as somebody who plays mostly support. The dire hard camp was just it's very difficult to connect to the easy camp there in the safe lane, and so as you can see, it's still not as easy as Radiant, and Radiant still has the pull through of the hard camp directly underneath the tower, which Dire doesn't have. But connecting the pull is a little bit easier. However, the lane creeps don't go far enough into the jungle, really, on the Dire side, and so you'll often lose the range creep with this pull just because of the distance between the camps and just how the leashes work. But as you can see, the leash is definitely longer, so it's a little bit nicer to play support on the Dire, but it's still not nearly as good as Radiant. So I think that still should be changed a little bit more. Item changes. And disc recipe cost has been reduced to 1100 gold. So this has been 3 or 4 buffs in a row for Andisk. It's just being completely ignored as an item. Nobody's picking it up, except in like very, very fringe situations. So we'll continue to see this item getting buffed. I don't think this is enough to make it super viable. It used to provide status resistance before, but now it only provides it when the Andisk is triggered. And I think the cooldown is just too long to really warrant buying this item for mostly any reason, unless you have like a void or something like that against you and you have to survive the Chronosphere. Guardian Greaves recipe cost has been increased by 100 gold. This item is still going to be extremely popular. 100 gold is not going to make any difference at all. It's already a very expensive item, so it's just a little bit more expensive now. Maybe we'll see it. I mean, I guess it's still just being picked up on mids and offlaners anyway. For the most part, you basically never see it picked up on supports, and that'll continue to be the case because it's just too expensive for them to get. But the item is way too good to be any less popular because of this gold change. Rod of Atos, which is an item that everybody's picking up on every mid hero, it seems like, and I definitely recommend picking up this item in most of the games that you play in pubs because lockdown is generally kind of lacking. The cooldown has been increased from 16 to 18, and cast range has been reduced by 150. So these are both definitely much needed nerfs for Rod of Atos. I think that at 18 seconds, the cooldown is still going to be very low and very easy to use to kind of initiate, like soft initiate fights. It's a very non-committal way to try and catch somebody out of position. The cast range is only being reduced by 50, so that's really not that big of a deal. I think this item is still very good. I think it still will be built a lot. Much needed nerfs to Atos. I don't think it's a dead item though. It'll still be good. Solar Crest, target attack speed increase reduction has been changed from 70 to 80. So this is another buff to Solar Crest. This has been a lot of patches in a row where this has been buffed ever since it was changed to do this attack speed increase and reduction. You know, it's still a good item. It's very good for taking Roche. I don't think that this is going to change a whole lot. It's still something that you're going to pick up kind of as like a fringe situational item. Against high physical damage lineups, or it's a very good anti-core item for sure. Hero changes. Arc Warden agility gain has been increased from 2.1 to 2.4. Tempest double duration has been increased as well. And this is a hero that was super popular for a while, about 3-4 months ago, was nerfed pretty heavily, and now it's kind of being buffed back a little bit. The agi gain seems to be one of Iceroy's favorite ways to buff heroes, is just kind of increasing their stat gain a little bit. This will give Arc Warden a little bit more damage, attack speed, and armor over the course of the game. Tempest double duration is a little bit bigger of a deal because this is what the hero is based around, and having an additional 4 seconds at level 3 of this skill means that the double is going to be able to do so much more work in fights and split pushing. Axe strength gain has been increased from 3.2 to 3.4. This is a hero that really has fallen out of the meta because a lot of the popular carries are good against Axe currently. He's also a hero that just doesn't really tend to build aura items very much. And so he's fallen out of his place in the offlane, which is no longer really the initiator role. It's more of a sort of tanky frontliner aura builder role, sometimes a pseudo carry, and Axe doesn't really fit any of those roles. He can definitely be played as a support, and one of the big deals with Axe is that the counter helix being nerfed at level 1 made him basically completely unviable as an offlaner. So this will just make him a little bit tankier over the course of the game, and he might just need more of a role shift than anything before he becomes meta again. Broodmother damage increase has been increased by 3. So Brood is a hero that was extremely popular and competitive for a while. It's always been one of those really insane last pick heroes. It even won a game at the DreamLeague Major. And it was also a hero that was nerfed pretty heavily after it was very popular. But, you know, base damage increased by 3 helps the very early game, the last hitting, where Brood tends to struggle in that first level before Brood gets spiders. So it's actually a pretty big deal because Brood is very weak at level 1. But once she gets a spider army, she becomes very difficult to deal with. And this helps her level 1 in particular more than anything else. Centaur War Runner, double edge damage has been increased from 40, 60, 80, 100% of your strength to 60, 80, 100, 120. More damage from double edge. 20 talent has been increased from 50 retaliate damage to 70 retaliate damage. This is another hero that has kind of fallen out of favor because he can be an aura builder to some extent, but again, he's really not that good against heroes like Ursa, Lifestealer, etc. They're very popular. And this probably won't change that until those heroes become less meta. But Centaur is a hero that we could potentially look out for in the future. Chen, Divine Favor, duration has been reduced from 14 at all levels to scaling up to 14. So nerfing Chen's early game pretty significantly. This is a very, very popular support hero. In competitive, it was banned a ton. That's just because he allows you to hit such an insane early timing with his map movement from recall, stealing catapults and blowing up towers very quickly. Dragonite, Elder Dragon form slow, been increased from 30 to 40, so that is quite high. If we look at the Eye of Scotty, it's a 35% slow, so it's actually better than Scotty now in terms of the movement speed slow that it provides. And his talents have been all buffed. Basically, all the talents that are never picked have been buffed. Everybody's going for the mana, the damage, the strength, and the Dragon Blood HP and regen doubling. And these are just all the ones that nobody picks, just being buffed, saying, please pick these. Drow Ranger, agility gain has been increased from 2.5 to 2.8. Base agility has been increased by 6. Base damage has been unchanged. I think that Drow is a little bit of a sleeper hero. I think that Thompson showed kind of what this hero can do potentially as just like insane farming. She kind of fell off when the second Ancient Camp was removed, making her mid being played in the mid a little bit worse. But other than that, hasn't really been nerfed too much. I think she's mostly just been buffed, and having 6 additional agility is nice attack speed buff and extra armor in the laning stage. So I think that Drow is definitely a hero to look out for in the future. And she's one of the fastest farmers in the game once you get a Blink Dagger very early on. Earthshaker base armor has been increased by 2, so he's tanky. Now basically a 4 base armor, so that's quite good, quite high. Maybe we'll see a little bit of a return of, I don't know, offlaner Shaker. I don't know. This hero, he's just a little bit slow currently for the meta. He's not that good at fighting in the lanes, and so he's in a little bit of a rough spot in the meta currently. Enchantress base strength has been increased by 1. Base intelligence has been increased from 17 to 19, so a little bit more tanky, a little bit more mana. This is another hero that has been buffed quite a bit recently, and I think we need to look out for. Gyrocopter base damage has been increased by 3. Level 10 talent increase from 200 to 250 health. So just early game Gyro being buffed more. I feel like this is a hero that we could start seeing more and more in the meta just because he is so good at fighting in the early game. That's very prevalent right now. We've seen it mostly unpicked unless it's paired with an IO, but with the IO being nerfed to some extent and Gyro now being buffed and buffed and buffed and buffed, we may see this a little bit more. It was picked without an IO a few times at the major, and these changes could definitely make pro teams favorite more. It's definitely a hero that pro teams are very comfortable playing on and around. So I would expect to see Gyro kind of coming back into the meta, at least in the competitive scene, pretty soon. Juggernaut Omni Slash cooldown has been increased. This hero is borderline dead at this point. He's been nerfed so much in the last, I don't know, 5-6 patches. Omni Slash has an insanely long cooldown now. It's been nerfed. Everything about Jug has been nerfed, I feel like. And he just is definitely falling off as a popular carry. I think I would probably look elsewhere if I was looking to pick a carry at the moment. Leshrac, Diabolic Edict. Damage has been reduced early on, but scaling back to where it was. So just kind of nerfing that level 1-2 harass from Leshrac, where he was able to run supports down and just kind of own them with the Edict. I think that the build is still probably viable because, I mean, that's what you were doing before, is you'd get 2 points in Split Earth and then you max Edict as well. So you might as well be maxing Edict anyway. It just makes his early game slightly worse. Lifestealer Rage cooldown has been increased from 16 to 18, so another nerf to Lifestealer, very, very popular carry. Probably will continue to be a very popular carry because of how the meta is functioning right now, but this definitely makes him, you know, slightly easier to kill just because he has less uptime on being invincible to magic damage. Lena Agility has been increased from 16 plus 1.5 to 23 plus 1.8, so 7 additional base agility, which is, I think, 2 armor, something like that, and additional agility gain. So he's going to be attacking much faster, relatively speaking, in the early game. So Lena's laning stage has been buffed, and then she's going to have more armor throughout the course of the game as well, which is just quite nice. And then because hero that tends to attack fast anyway, the attack speed probably won't matter that much that you get from the Agi. Mars, the most overpowered hero in the game, according to most people. Strength gain has been reduced from 3.6 to 3.2, so somewhat less tanky throughout the course of the game. Spear of Mars Vision AoE has been reduced from 500 to 300. That's a much bigger deal. This is something that they did to Puck when Illusory Orb used to provide a huge amount of vision, as they reduced the vision that it provided. It's actually quite a big deal considering that you generally throw Spear of Mars into the trees trying to find supports or heroes that are TPing away. And now you will get much less chance to actually find them. You have to be much more on the mark with this to actually see people. And so that's a relatively big deal for, you know, fighting with Spear of Mars. God's Rebuke mana cost has been increased to now be 65, 70, 75, 80. So at level 1, it's now the same mana that it costs at level 3. Which means that you can't use this nearly as much to trade in the laning stage. 15 mana might not seem like a lot, but considering that Mars's mana pool is relatively low, it's definitely a bigger deal. I think this maybe gives some more credence to going for something like Arcane Boots Greaves on this hero instead of just going for the phase of lads that a lot of people are doing. Or just, you know, maxing Spear of Mars. Talents, level 20 talent reduced the Spear of Mars extra stun from 1.51, so it doesn't scale to be quite as insane. The extra 1 second stun is still quite good, however, especially considering that the 200 damage from Spear of Mars is pretty irrelevant on this hero. So just, you know, fairly minor nerfs on Mars. The God's Rebuke mana cost is a fairly big deal. Definitely needed nerfs, but I wouldn't say that these are going to make the hero just F tier or anything like that. It's still a very good hero. Naga Siren Mirror Image Illusion incoming damage has been reduced from 400 to 350. I feel like this hero is sneakily becoming more and more powerful. It's definitely a somewhat slow hero, but I think that we've seen it played in kind of an aggressive fighting style where you're not going for radiance or anything. You just go for like Diffusal Blade, and then the Riptide is super strong. So the mirror images also proccing the Riptide is a really big deal, and I think that this hero is definitely something that we should keep an eye out for. It's on the rise as a potential carry, maybe to replace Juggernaut, for example. Omni Knight base armor has been increased by 1. So this is a hero that we highlighted as being an up-and-coming, potentially good hero a couple Heroes of the Weeks ago, and this is just another buff to the hero. He still wasn't being picked that much in the competitive scene, although I believe it was Fnatic that was running him a bit with relatively good success, or maybe it was Secret. I can't remember. There's some team at the Major that was running like a Razor Omni Knight Ursa lineup or something like that. He's definitely very strong with an aggressive hero because you can just put the Heavenly Grace on them. They get insane stats resistance. It's very hard to deal with. So just more buffs to a hero that's already probably pretty good. Oracle. This is the, I believe, most picked hero at the DreamLeague Major. So much needed nerfs. False Promise cooldown has been increased. This is definitely one of the biggest deals with this hero, is that it seems like he's always able to save somebody every single fight. Like a free get out of jail card, or get out of jail free card rather. And False Promise cooldown being increased pretty significantly at all levels is definitely a relatively big deal. I think that even the level 2s rank in this skill going from 65 to 80 is probably the biggest deal, just because it seems like once you get to like level 12 on Oracle, he just always has False Promise available, and so 80 seconds is still pretty significant. And the mana cost has been increased to scale, and the cast range has been reduced. That's the biggest deal there, is that at the early ranks of the skill, it's only 700 to 850 range, so you actually have to put yourself in danger to save a teammate, as opposed to just being like trees or on the fringes of the fight. So much needed nerfs to Oracle, who is probably still the best save hero in the game at the moment, but this just makes him a little bit easier to deal with. Pangolier, Lucky Shot, can no longer apply both silence and disarm at the same time. That's nice. Lucky Shot chance has also been reduced from 20% to 17%. It's still basically 100% every time you use Swashbuckle, just because you get 4 attacks to proc it off of, but it's definitely going to be slightly worse, make this slightly more balanced of a skill. And then Rolling Thunder mana cost scaling now will make late game Pangolier have to manage his mana a little bit more than he would otherwise. Puck Dream Coil no longer latches on spell immune units for non-scepter version, so Puck no longer counters Pangolier. So a buff to Pangolier after nerfing him. The talents for Puck have been changed from 5 armor to 125 cast range, or 10 intelligence to +5 all stats. So now it's +5 all stats or 125 cast range. I feel like those are both pretty nice for Puck. The 5 all stats, a little bit more tanky to fight early on. 10 intelligence was just kind of like, oh yay, damage, but I'm very squishy. And the cast range is super nice because obviously as a caster, somebody you want to initiate with, having extra cast range, especially 125, that's quite a bit, is a pretty big deal. Pudge, Flesh Heap regeneration has been increased pretty significantly at level 1. 5 HP regen for 1 point in Flesh Heap is pretty good. Definitely more of a value point put in there, I think, and then kind of scales better. Queen of Pain base armor has been increased by 1. I think that this is another hero to look out for. This hero that's starting to be picked a little bit more in the mid lane, especially in high level pubs. They're going for this in the off lane. They're building Ethos Greaves on Queen of Pain. Just wraps out damage anyway. Defensive items and initiating items for this hero. So I think that Queen of Pain is definitely a pretty good hero and one that's on the rise. Sand King, Sandstorm damage has been increased. On the final 3 ranks of the skill, and Bro Strike cast range, this is a fairly big deal, has been increased as well. This is Sand King's best skill for sure, and so making it able to reach farther is a pretty big deal. Shadow Shaman base intelligence has been reduced by 2, so he can't spam quite as much early on. He less damage, I would assume, as well, since they didn't make a note that his base damage has been unchanged. So slightly worse of a hero since he was super popular for the entire major. Silencer Glaives of Wisdom damage has been increased just at the later stages, so core Silencer is a little better. I don't know. This hero is still seemingly kind of like an Enigma counter walking ultimate, but I don't know. I don't think that that's going to make this hero that viable. Skywrath Mage Mystic Flare damage has been increased at all levels. That's more. The Atos Skywrath Mage. Still a pretty good situational build. Sniper Shrapnel replenish time is reduced from 50 to 40. Now, if you remember the last time we talked about Sniper in a patch, Jenkins was mentioning that we were rapidly approaching the point at which Sniper's ho-ho-ha-ha days were earning, because that was pretty much, he was so good because of the Shrapnel replenish time. And now it is back to basically where it was before. So, you know, maybe Sniper will be something that we need to watch out for. Take aim active cooldown has been reduced, so you can now proc the extra aim or the extra range more regularly early on. Probably a better 1-point wonder as well. Spirit Breaker, although I don't know, people tend to level this up quite a bit as well, just to stay away in the mid lane. Spirit Breaker Charge of Darkness cooldown has been reduced by 1 second. So Breaker can now be in more places than he could. Love to hear that's not being picked that much, but still probably a pretty good hero, especially against likes of Bounty Hunter and Monkey King. Therm Spirit Intelligence increased base and the gain as well. Static Remnant damage has been increased as well at all levels, and Vortex pull distance is increased at all levels. So just straight buffs to 3 different parts of Storm Spirit. Ice Frog desperately trying to bring this hero back into the meta. Again, it's still a hero that struggles from just not having enough mana throughout the course of a game, not having enough mana regen in particular. But situationally, maybe he will start seeing a little bit more play. He does more damage. He has a little bit more control. He has a little bit more mana and damage from his base as well. So we'll have to see how Storm Spirit continues to function in the meta. He's definitely still a bit of a slow hero, but he's pretty good at farming the jungle, and the dire jungle in particular is very easy to farm. Templar Assassin agility gain has been increased, and meld debuff duration has been increased as well. This is another buff to meld. I think TA, we saw TA a decent amount of times in the major. Abed picked it up quite a bit. It's a hero that definitely suffered from the removal of that second ancient camp, but I think it's still a hero that situationally could be pretty good. It fights very well early on, and that's kind of where the meta is at. It's a snowball hero, takes Roche. They're all good things. And with Ursa, the next hero being nerfed again, Roche takers are always in pretty high demand. Base armor has been reduced on Ursa by 1. So that's another base armor reduction, I believe. This was second in a row or second in the last couple of patches. So he's just less tanky. He's less easy play in the laning stage, I would say. He's just a very easy hero to play in laning stage. You just run at people, feel like you're faster than everyone, you're tankier than everyone, you trade better than everyone, and this just nerfs that aspect of the hero. Venomancer Poison Nova Scepter damage has been increased. Cares. Viper agility gain has been reduced from 2.8 to 2.5, and Nether Toxin cooldown has been increased by 1 second. So you still have 100% uptime in Nether Toxin, you just can't put out quite as many, quite as spammy with it. And the agi gain will make Viper attack less slowly and be less tanky throughout the course of the game, which is good for a hero that seemingly was kind of being able to play hybrid damage and tank too easily. Wind Ranger base strength has been increased by 1. Yay! Focus fire attack speed has been increased to more. Yet again, this hero, it still suffers from the same problems, which is just that it does single target damage and it needs like 10 items to be fully a core. So, I mean, this is good for being able to take towers and such and putting out more damage in fights, taking a Roshan, I suppose. But I don't know if this hero is viable. Maybe if they make this like 800 attack speed, something like that, and instantly kill people, then Wind Ranger will be good. But I wouldn't say that win rate is a good hero yet. Zeus, intelligence increased from 20 plus 3.1 to 21 plus 3.3. Static field damage has been increased from 4, 6, 8, 10% to 5, 7, 9, 11%. I think that Zeus potentially could be the new Skywrath Mage, where you just lightning bolt people in lane over and over, suicide, lightning bolt people in lane over and over. This hero still does a ton of damage. He doesn't provide nearly as much control as you might want some supports to do, but he just does so much damage, and that's been fun. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you learned a little bit about the new patch 7.21D, and thanks for watching. Let us know in the comment section below what your favorite change of this patch was, and we'll see you in another video. Hello everyone, and thank you for watching the video. We genuinely appreciate your time and attention spent with us here on the YouTube channel.